Hello friends, what's up? It's Jaime here. Welcome back to my channel. Ignore that this is not my usual setup. My usual filming space is being occupied right now. So right now we are in my room, and so it's a little messy, so please ignore that. But hi, hello. Welcome back to my channel. As you can probably tell from the title of this video or the vlog that I posted last week, I have finally, after 4 long years, graduated from college. I graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Playwriting and Screenwriting and a minor in psychology, but the latter part is not really important for today's video. For today's video, I really wanted to talk about literally every single class, every single screenwriting class that I took throughout my college career and examine and go through which ones I actually learned things from and which ones I maybe did not learn so much from, and just kind of compare them. Honestly, I'm mostly doing this for me. This is this is a video that I've been in the works with doing for 4 years pretty much now. But I also was like, you know what, maybe someone will find this useful if you are going to major in screenwriting, particularly if you're going to major in playwriting and screenwriting at SUNY Purchase, which is where I went. You might find this useful, but this is honestly, genuinely, this is mostly for me, just to kind of reflect and look back on which classes I actually learned things in and which I, again, maybe did not learn so much in. And yes, technically my major was playwriting and screenwriting, but I only took 2 playwriting courses throughout my entire time at Purchase. Like, I liked playwriting, but it has never been my main focus. Screenwriting has always been my main focus. Those were the primary courses that I took, despite being a playwriting and screenwriting major. So that is why when I refer to myself as purely being a screenwriting major, that is why, because I literally only took 2 playwriting courses. I already anticipate that this video is going to be so long. This is the longest script I have ever written for a video ever. The script is 22 pages long. So I'm thinking that this is probably going to be a 2-part, maybe even 3-part video. We're gonna see once I film it all and edit it all what it turns out to be. But yeah, this is a long video. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we get into my classes, I just wanted to mention that everything I talk about in today's video, and however many parts it ends up being, is in regards to the SUNY Purchase playwriting and screenwriting major. Other people at other schools may have different experiences with their screenwriting courses or screenwriting majors, but these are just my experiences with the SUNY Purchase playwriting and screenwriting major. Starting with screenwriting 1, also, just so we're on the same page, I'm gonna be reading off of my script. I usually try to memorize portions of my script and just kind of do takes and cut in between when I usually do videos, but not for this one. This is too fucking long. I can't. I literally cannot. If I try, I will go insane and this will take way too long. So this is what we're doing. My laptop is right here. I put it on top of the bin. So starting with screenwriting 1, I took screenwriting 1 the spring semester of my freshman year in 2021. The official course description for screenwriting 1 is as follows. Let me make this bigger so I can actually see it. Okay, so it says screenwriting 1 introduces the student to writing a dramatic story for the screen, placing an emphasis on discovery, good work habits, critical assessment, and rewriting as essential to the professional writer. Through numerous assignments, students learn the basics of dramatic story structure, revealing character, writing dialogue, genre, and use of story suspense. All techniques are applied in a final short screenplay. Just as the course description says, screenwriting 1 is meant to be an introductory course to screenwriting, and I would say that it is a good introduction to screenwriting. I have been writing stories for the better part of my life, but I didn't know that I wanted to do screenwriting specifically until I was about 15, 16 years old. And because of that, I didn't know that much about the fundamentals of screenwriting or screenwriting structure when I entered college, but that is where this course came in. So in screenwriting 1, we learned about the basic 3-act structure and Aristotle's Poetics, which is essentially the basics of dramatic dramatic writing and storytelling. Some key takeaways from Aristotle were catharsis, which is when we fear what's going to happen to a character and we feel bad for them when it does. Another takeaway is denouement. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. It's like a French word, I'm pretty sure. Which is the tying together of loose ends after resolution of a story. And in media res, I think that's Latin, not really sure, which, as my professor put it, means get in late, get out early. Basically, this concept means that you want to start a scene as late as possibly as you can so that within the first bit of the scene, we are witnessing something important to the plot. For example, if you have a scene where a character is going to get a phone call where they learn that someone important to them has passed away, you don't want to start the scene with the character doing their entire morning routine, for example. Like, you can have that, but you want to start the scene relatively close to when the character would receive this phone call, since this is what is important to the plot, is going to move the plot forward. Like, if you want to have them like get interrupted while they're like brushing their teeth or something or like whatnot, that's fine, but you don't want them to do all of these tasks that are inconsequential to the plot and then have the main part of the scene happen. You want to kind of, again, it doesn't even have to be at the beginning of the scene, but it just has to be close to the beginning of the scene where we get into the action. And so then you want to get out of the scene as early as possible. Once we have learned what we needed to know for the plot, now we move on. So essentially, don't linger in the scene for too long after the important story information has happened. In this class, we also learned about Chekhov's gun and what a MacGuffin is, which is funny because I didn't even realize until I was writing the script for this video that they're kind of the opposite of each other. So Chekhov's gun is when an element of seemingly no importance is introduced, but is later revealed to be very important. And then a MacGuffin, again, is kind of the opposite. It's an element that is introduced and drives the story forward, despite not actually having any great significance at the end. Screenwriting 1 was also my introduction to Final Draft, which is the screenwriting program that industry professionals use. We were also introduced to cheaper alternatives like Celtics and Writer Duet, though if you want to pursue screenwriting professionally, Final Draft is a pretty important investment. And if you are a student, you can get like student discounts. Screenwriting 1 was also my first experience with pitching a script idea to like people to people that I didn't know, and writing a treatment, which is essentially a detailed story outline of your film or TV series used for pitching. Our first assignment for the class was to watch Thelma and Louise and break down the 3-act structure, and then we had a few more assignments where we wrote short scenes based on prompts that were given to us by my professor before deciding what we were going to write for our final short screenplay. So for our final, we all wrote approximately a 10-page script. We had a final exam where we answered questions about our script, and we also exchanged scripts with a classmate to provide feedback for their script. Overall, I really enjoyed Screenwriting 1. I felt that it was a really good introduction to the basics of screenwriting, and even though I may not use everything that I learned in Screenwriting 1 in my writing today, as my professor JD said, before you try to cheat the rules, learn them. Master the basics, the rest will follow. Also, JD was such a great instructor. I'll talk a bit more about him later, but he was really the first person who ever said that, I believe, I can't remember his exact, I have to go back and find the email, but it's something like about having the aptitude for screenwriting, and I will always be really thankful for that. And he always gave really great feedback, and it's also just funny to think that I was not even supposed to have him for Screenwriting 1. I was supposed to have a completely different professor, but literally the week before the semester started, I will always remember getting this email from JD. Our class got an email from JD, and he was like, hey. So actually, the professor who was supposed to teach this class couldn't do it, so now I'm teaching your class. Hi. So it's so funny because JD does not He does not teach screenwriting one. Like, I don't believe he has taught screenwriting one since my class. So I'm really, really grateful to have had him for a screenwriting one. Okay, next we have screenwriting 2. I took screenwriting 2 the spring semester of my sophomore year in 2022. The official course description for screenwriting 2 is as follows. So it says, using an existing short piece of fiction, students delineate the elements of the story, experiencing their importance and power, translate the short story into a screenplay for a narrative film, and complete 2 drafts of a 25-page screenplay. In the process, they learn the techniques of adaptation for the screen and a deeper level of dramatic story structure. Emphasis is on discovering the dramatic character when evaluating the merits of a particular adaptation, which extends to evaluating one's own ideas for a screenplay, introducing genre and story types, and research as a dramatist's fundamental tool. So, screenwriting 2 is all about adaptations. Our first assignments of the semester were to watch the Charlie Kaufman film adaptation, and to read the Breakfast at Tiffany's novella and watch the Breakfast at Tiffany's movie. This isn't really important, but I didn't really enjoy adaptation or Breakfast at Tiffany's. Both movies were very meh to me. But so the rest of the semester was dedicated to writing our own adaptations. But instead of writing 2 drafts of a 25-page screenplay, like the course description says, we each wrote a 20-page, again, kind of give or take, screenplay. Then we swapped scripts with a classmate and adapted our classmate's screenplay into a 10-page script. After our initial assignments of watching adaptation, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and reading the Breakfast at Tiffany's novella, we pitched our ideas. Also, just so that we're on the same page, for these classes, the pitches that we do are more to practice pitching itself and less about whether or not like the professor is going to approve the story that you write. Though that being said, the professor does have the final say in like what students are allowed to write for the class, but this really only applies to content that may be disturbing or triggering for the other students in the class, because we don't have a choice but to be there. We have to be there and read each other's scripts. So if it's going to be like some really fucked up, like disturbing content, the professor may be like, yeah, actually don't write that for this class. Though in this class, there were some additional conditions that had to be met in order for us to be able to write our adaptations for this class. So we were allowed to adapt a short story, a short novel, a current / historical event from a newspaper or magazine article, but we were not allowed to adapt like full-length films or adapt TV shows or video games or songs. I'm sure there's something else that I'm forgetting, but those were like the big ones. But so after our pitches were approved by our professor, we would then write like about 5 pages weekly and make edits based on the feedback that we were given during class. Once we completed our 20-page screenplays, our professor assigned us someone else's script to adapt into a 10-page screenplay, like I said before. We created beat sheets for the script that we got in the swap, which is essentially a bullet point list of all the important moments in a screenplay, and got to writing. Overall, I found screenwriting 2 to be pretty easy. My 20-page screenplay was an adaptation of Stronger Than You Know, which is a novel by Jolene Perry. And I liked writing that script. I also thought that doing the 10-page script swap was interesting, but I just felt like there wasn't much that I could do creatively in only 10 pages. But there wasn't much I could do about that at the time. In terms of what I learned from the class, I don't really feel like I learned that much about writing adaptations, if I'm completely honest. Like, I wrote the adaptations that we were assigned to do in class, but it wasn't a particularly new or exciting experience. Like, I didn't feel particularly challenged or stimulated by the 20-page or 10-page screenplays that I wrote for this class. Like, I liked writing them. I think that they're decent scripts, but as I kind of mentioned before, I felt like there wasn't much for me to do creatively since the page limits were so, like, limiting, for lack of a better word. The only new thing that I really learned from this class, that I took away from this class, were about the beat sheets, because I had never made a beat sheet before, before this class. But besides that, everything else was pretty much a repeat of Screenwriting 1. So overall, this class was fine. The professor was fine. But as a foundation course for the major, I feel like we probably should have learned more, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Next up is Screenwriting 3. I took Screenwriting 3 the fall semester of my junior year in 2022. The official course description for Screenwriting 3 is as follows. So it says, an introduction to full-length narrative and 3-act structure. The art and craft of screenwriting are explored through analysis and developing, writing, and rewriting a longer screenplay, 60 pages, with an emphasis on what Hollywood looks for in a screenplay. Techniques covered include voiceover, establishing shots, montages, and creating tension and payoff. The business of the screenwriter, how to pitch, and finding work/selling a screenplay are also covered. Just as the course description said, the goal of Screenwriting 3 is to write a semi-full-length screenplay. The reason why I say semi-full-length is because a full-length screenplay, like a film, like a feature, is generally considered to be like 90 to 120 pages. So this was definitely the longest screenplay I had written at this time with this class at 60 pages. 60 pages is still a lot, but technically it's not quite full length. Our first assignment for this class was to watch Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind and break down the 3-act structure. And I'm sorry, but I have to go off on a tangent. There has never been a single movie that I've ever watched that has ever induced so much rage in me. Oh my god, I hate this movie. I hate this movie so much. I hate it with such a burning passion. I have never, don't get me wrong, there have been movies that I've watched that I just found okay or didn't really like that much, but this movie made me angry. It caused me rage. I do not care that it is critically acclaimed. I do not care that film people love it. Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind is the worst film watching experience that I have ever had the displeasure of having. Oh my god. This movie is only an hour 48 minutes long, but that is still an hour and 48 minutes that I will never get back, because this movie was such a fucking waste of time. I'm sorry. And actually, technically, it took me closer to 3 hours to watch the entire movie, because I had to keep pausing because it was so mind-numbingly boring that I kept missing stuff and I had to rewind to see what I missed. Oh my god, it's literally everything about this movie just caused me physical pain. The main love interests are awful. I hope they both fall in a ditch. And Mark Ruffalo was the only saving grace of this movie. Holy shit. Oh my god. I will never, ever, ever forgive JD for making us watch that movie. And yes, JD, I had him for Screenwriting 3 again. And I still love JD. But this movie, oh my god, this movie tested my patience in ways that it had never, ever been tested before. Oh, it was such an awful experience. I never want to see this movie ever again. And I do not plan to ever watch it ever, ever again. Anyway, getting back to the actual class, after having to watch the movie that shall not be named, we had to come up with 2 possible ideas for the screenplay that we wanted to write for the semester. And then we took those 2 ideas and wrote log lines for them. And it's funny because I think that this might have been the first class where the concept of log lines was properly introduced, which is kind of crazy because log lines are not at all a high level concept. Log lines are those 1, maybe 2 sentence summaries of a movie or TV show that are used for advertising. You see them if you're going through a streaming site and you're flipping through movies or TV shows and you see those little summaries, those are log lines. So you've seen them before. You know what log lines are. They're not anything crazy. Again, they're not this high level, upper level concept. They're a pretty basic part of, entertainment. But anyway, so once you had your idea that you were going to work on, you created this 3-act outline treatment and a 2 to 3 minute pitch that you would then present in class. The pitch, not the treatment. The treatment was just for JD to give feedback on. And from then on, our assignment was to write 6 to 7 pages of our screenplays every week, which we would then present in class. And then for everyone who didn't present in class, the rest of us would read their pages and upload our feedback to our class's Google Drive. We had this Google Drive that our TA made, which was where basically that's where we uploaded all of our work. We all uploaded our pages and feedback to the Google Drive. This was our routine throughout the entire semester, and then at the end of the semester, JD assigned us partners whose script we would read and give feedback on. And one of our final classes of the semester was dedicated to, it's basically just a whole big like note swap. So first we got notes from JD, then we exchanged the notes and feedback that we did for our partner, and then any additional notes that we that our TA wanted to give us, he gave us then as well. And then our actual like final class was dedicated to the business of screenwriting, in which JD answered people's questions and gave us just like general advice on things to do when we graduate and like how to navigate the entertainment industry, all that jazz. One of the things that JD taught us was this breakdown of how much your agent, your manager, and your attorney get of what you earn. Not every screenwriter has all three or even one of those things, but if you do have them, this is how much they get of what you earn from when you get jobs. So agents always take 10%. They are licensed, they are allowed to close deals, and they cannot take producing credits. Managers only take 10%, 15% if you don't have an agent, and they can take producing credits. And then attorneys always take 5%. Another one of the things that I remember JD telling us is that a good way to try to break into the industry is to become someone's assistant, like a producer's assistant or like an executive's assistant. It's a good way to try to, get your foot in the door and work your way up in the industry. Though JD did keep it very real with us and how difficult it is to break into the entertainment industry, and I really appreciated his honesty. Overall, I loved Screenwriting 3. I think it also just helps that JD is a really great professor. I really liked how he structured the class, and he always just gives really detailed feedback, which I really appreciate. My one critique would probably have to be that having to write 6 to 7 pages, and this isn't even really a JD thing, this is just kind of the format the class has to take, is that having to write 6 to 7 pages every week is a lot, which again, I get is what is expected of us since this is an upper level class, but 6 to 7 pages weekly is a lot if you experience writer's block at any point in the semester. Like, you have to always be writing, and if you fall behind, it can be very difficult to catch up, which is why JD always encouraged us to turn in what we had, even if it was only a few pages. But even then, again, it's like if you fall behind a couple weeks in a row, you're really struggling to catch up in the end. But again, that's less a JD thing, and that's just more kind of how the class has to be, unfortunately, in order to get everything done. But yeah. But besides that, I still really enjoyed this class. I feel like I learned a lot. Though I still do not forgive, I still do not and will not forgive JD for making us watch Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. Okay, next we have junior seminar. I took junior sem the spring semester of my junior year in 2023, and the official course description for junior sem is as follows. So it says, students develop ideas for their senior project, a play or screenplay, or also a few episodes of a TV series or just an episodic series. They research, develop, and present their scenarios to the class for response and critique. Junior Sem is a course designed for rising seniors to figure out what their senior project is going to be, to get feedback on their senior project idea, to create a portfolio that they will eventually give to their senior project advisor, and then to develop a pitch for their senior project, which they will present to the class at the end of the semester. The final portfolio that you create for your senior project is a compilation of all the assignments that you complete throughout junior seminar. And so there are a lot of assignments that you get in junior sem. So I'm going to go through them all really quickly and only elaborate on the ones that I feel like need extra explanation. So our first basic assignment was to watch the film Boy and break down the 3-act structure. I think we may have had to answer some additional questions in regards to Boy, but I can't remember. It's at this point, it has left my memory. As for our senior projects, we were instructed to first come up with 5 initial ideas. We would complete the following assignments with these 5 ideas in mind. For example, if the assignment was to write log lines, we would write log lines for each of these 5 ideas, and so on and so forth. Eventually, we downsized to 3 ideas. Again, it's like if the assignment was to write about the characters, you would then write about the characters for these 3 ideas, and then so on and so forth, until by the end of the semester, you had your senior project idea. So first we have the topic/artist question. So this assignment is where you would say what topics your story covers and what life lesson questions your story is trying to answer. Next is the what if statement. The what if basically poses your story idea in the form of a question. I'm gonna insert the what if statement I did for Mission to Martius as an example. I feel like that will be the best way for you to get an understanding of like what it's supposed to be. Then we also had assignments to do log lines, the story synopsis, the world that your story is set in, the time frame that the story takes place, the genre. These were all separate assignments. I'm just listing them off. Other assignments included identifying the story's protagonist, the protagonist's inner problems or character flaws, the inciting incident that sets the character on their journey, the want or goal that the character hopes to achieve, what makes the character empathetic. There were also assignments about the antagonist, the oppositional characters, the allied characters, the self-revelation or climactic choice that the protagonist has to make, the resolution of the protagonist's goal, and how the protagonist changes by the end of the story. There were assignments for how does your story build suspense? What are the life values that your story is putting to the test? What is the moral argument that your story is making? You also had to do a 3-act breakdown of your story. And there was also a research assignment where you talk about what kind of things that you were going to need to research to write your story with accuracy. And then you take all the assignments and you put them in your final portfolio. It's recommended that you make 3 final portfolios, but you really only need the one that's going to be your actual senior project. And if over the summer, for example, you change your senior project, you just have to submit another portfolio, which you then send to your senior project advisor once they are assigned. At the end of the semester, Dean, who teaches junior sem, actually, is he the only one? I'm pretty sure he teaches the screenwriting version of junior sem. I know there's another professor who teaches the playwriting version of junior sem. I'm pretty sure Dean's the only one who teaches the screenwriting version of junior sem, but actually I'm not so sure now that I said that. But I had Dean. So Dean told us to send in essentially this form for our top 3 choices for our senior project advisor. And at some point over the summer, once he's gone through everybody's choices, the advisors are assigned accordingly. Also, like I mentioned at the beginning of this section, you create a pitch PowerPoint that you present at the end of the semester, which is essentially an abbreviated version of your final portfolio. You should also know that while we were doing all of these assignments for our senior project, we also had to do them for a semester film. They were the exact same assignments, but for a movie of our choosing. And as we were doing all of those assignments, we also had to do, we would also have regular reading quizzes where we would answer questions based on the readings that Dean assigned. And with all those things combined, junior sem was by far the most dense screenwriting course that I took in terms of assignments. And it's also a unique course in that you're completing all these assignments like about your senior project without actually writing your senior project. Junior SEM is a really useful class. It really makes you examine your senior project idea in ways that you may not have considered, or at least that's how it was for me. And Dean is a really excellent teacher. I have to take a moment to really shout out Dean because he's great. The whole program would literally fall apart without him. Like they would be in shambles without Dean. He's the screenwriting chair of the department. He's so busy. I worry for him sometimes, but he teaches so many classes. You'll hear me mention him again a few more times later in this video because I had him for several classes. But yeah, he's just always doing like the most. Like he's always answering advising questions, even for students where that he's not like the advisor for, and he's always giving like really great detailed feedback. He's just wonderful. I love Dean. He is so incredible. My one thing though is that Dean, you have, like, listen to me, you have to let go of those reading quizzes, man. I mean, I don't think he's actually gonna watch this. I don't think he will ever see this, but Dean, if somehow you are watching this, those reading quizzes are completely useless. You've got to let them go. I'm sorry. You have to trust me on that one, because especially for junior SEM, I know you love your reading quizzes. We're going to talk about them again later in this video, but because there are already so many assignments for junior SEM, and I personally feel like the semester, having to do all the assignments for the semester film are already pushing it. But if you have to keep something, I would say keep the semester film assignments and drop the reading quizzes, because again, they're just not I cannot remember a single thing from any of those reading quizzes. Like, I did not absorb any information. I don't really feel like I actually learned anything from them that like you didn't teach us, that you didn't already teach us in the lectures and through the other assignments that were like actually important. So bottom line, the reading quizzes, they're useless. They have to go. But all in all, junior SEM is a really valuable course. You really learn so much from it, which is a good thing because it is one of those required courses. I didn't really mention it before, but so out of the courses that I've mentioned so far, screenwriting 1, screenwriting 2, and junior SEM are all required. Screenwriting 3 is an elective that you can choose to take, but in terms of like the foundation courses that you need to take for the major, the ones I just mentioned are the ones you really need to take. So it's a good thing that this course actually like gives you a lot of like really important and like valuable information. And Dean's a great professor, and he has a great taste in music too. All right, this is where I'm going to cut part 1. You can check out part 2. It will be coming out next week. And then if there is a part 3, I'm not so sure yet. It's going to depend on how I edit part 2. But if there is a part 3, it'll be out the week after that on Wednesday. But thank you guys so much for watching. I upload Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, except when I don't. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.